Bienvenue à notre entrevue exclusive. Veuillez vous référer à l'épisode précédent pour savoir de quoi on parle. Et oui, l'entrevue est en anglais parce que le français, ça se parle pas partout sur la planète. Malheureusement. Bonne écoute. I think that people would be pretty happy if you tried to say some words. Do you want to say something to the people before we start?
Okay, so this is going to be pretty bad.
There we go.
So I only know very basic, like high school, because I studied it at high school. So I can just say,
Perfect.
Bonjour, aujourd'hui, je m'appelle Tim Van Dammen, and I can't remember how to say director.
Le réalisateur.
Okay, I'll just say merci pour. I can't remember the word for listening. I can't remember anything.
Avoir
anymore.
vu le film.
No, I'm sorry, I tried. Je suis désolé pour la mal français.
So I think we could start maybe by introducing you, who you are, where you're from, not just like geographically, but where you're coming from, what's your background in the industry and everything. Just like a nice introduction.
Okay, well, I'm Tim Van Dammen and I'm from New Zealand, and I grew up rurally in small towns, travelled around a lot. My family moved a lot. And then I ended up going to university in Auckland, which is the biggest city in New Zealand. And I studied first year medicine, and then I hated it because all I really wanted to do was make films. And so I quit and I went to art school. I didn't go to the film school because I just thought the films that they made were bad, and the
Really?
art school, like all the cool shit was coming out of the art school. So you know all the best New Zealand filmmakers that from previous to when I studied there were all came out of the art school, not the film school. So I went there and I made a lot of video work. I studied moving image and I made a couple of films, a lot of shorts and animations and stop motion type stuff, and I made a lot of installations for art galleries and things like this. And while I was there, I played the drums in a band. Well, I used to, and my band got signed in the UK, so they flew us over, and we toured and did all the big festivals, and had a bit of a little rock star experience for a while, which was pretty cool. And of course they needed music videos for the TV and everything like that, so I made our music videos, and then I won a few awards. And so when I got back to New Zealand, I set up my own company and I started making music videos. And I made hundreds of music videos, just absolute massive number of music videos. And I sort of used them to experiment and to get my technical skills up, and to sort of form a team of filmmakers around me that we all wanted to move into making feature films, but this was like a great sort of way for us to hone our craft and be able to work out what you can get away with and what you can't when you've got no money. So Then I was hired by a couple of ad guys, like they were ad guys that make music for ads, and they'd written a whole lot of Shakespeare in its original language into songs, and they wanted me to make sort of a film to their music, but it was it was like they had something like 56 songs, and they basically wanted music videos for them that sort of told the story of Romeo and Juliet, more or less. So I went and did that because it sounded like fun, and it sounded like a logical transition between music videos and movies. So I went and did that, and that was fun, and that came out locally and whatnot, and it introduced me to a lot of people in the film industry in New Zealand. And then I was sent a lot of scripts and bits and pieces like this, but nothing really that I felt was very interesting or that good or anything. So I figured I'd have to learn how to write myself if I was going to be able to make what I wanted to make. So I spent a few years just writing scripts and trying to work out how the hell you write a decent story, until finally I sort of felt like I had an understanding of how to do it. And then I sort of looked around, like, what was my next sort of goal, and what I really wanted was to get an agent in the US because that's like where I wanted to work in that sort of space. So I looked around at what was happening, and all the festivals that I like and the festivals that I grew up going to were like Fantasia, like in New Zealand. I mean, you guys probably know him. He probably goes to Fantasia all the time. Ant Timpson. He had something quite similar to. Yeah, he's awesome, and he's like the grandfather of fucking interesting, film experiences in New Zealand. So I used to go to everything he ever put on, and I wanted to be in a festival like that. That's like fun, and everybody's just there to go crazy and have a good time, and so I looked in, and I noticed that like all of the films at all of these festivals, like Fantasia and Fright Fest and Fantastic Film Festival, and all these ones that I really liked, were mostly horror movies. They had a lot of horror movies, and I thought, well, then I'm not going to make a horror movie. I'll make a different kind of genre movie, one that's like that we don't see that often, that could be, maybe an interesting take. And at the time, I was working in a butchery in Thames,
really,
which is the small town that I was living in. And so we used to just like rush through all our work, and the butchers would cut up, everything for the day, and I would work the packing machine and pack everything up, and then we'd go out and we'd go fishing or we'd do whatever. And I thought it would be really funny if we had a time travel device or something. So I sort of based the movie around this idea that me and my friends in our little town had a time travel device, and what would we do with it? And so I wrote that into Make a Time Squad. And then I gathered my friends that we made all the music videos with, and we went out and we made the movie, shot it, and I did all the effects on it and whatnot, and finished it all up and sent it out. And then it turns out it did get into the festivals, like it got into Fantasia, and they offered us the world premiere, which was like my perfect scenario. So we were really lucky, and that so that was Mitch who did that, and that was really cool. And then it went off, and it did its own thing. It got sales agents and went around the world and sold everywhere, and I found its way into Hollywood, and I'm now signed to agents over there, and I'm working over there, and it sort of seemed to happen to just somehow work out. So that's my sort of background.
That's extensive. That's an extensive background check that you gave.
Right, yeah.
Usually people are just like, I was born there, I lived there, I did this, I did that, period. And I'm like, okay, let's go on to questions. But you actually like covered a lot of stuff. Yeah, I was wondering how. I was just gonna ask you, how's the movie going? Because like I was following a bit. You were kind of like putting it a bit murky on social media, but you got like a distribution deal. You have a deal with YouTube, like we can watch the movie on YouTube and pay for it. I have the physical copy. Like you can actually get the physical copies.
Yeah,
pretty much everywhere, right?
Yeah, there's so it was distributed internationally by MPI Media. Oh no, MPI Media was the sales agent, and then they went on to sell it to various distributors around the world. And so, excuse me, there's a lot of different versions of it. There's some really cool packaging stuff that Pandastorm did in Germany, which looks like a VHS tape and comes with...
I know, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it's really cool. It comes with like the time travel bracelet, and it comes with everything. So, you know, some people really did really cool stuff with it that I was really impressed with. But no, it's gone great. Like I sort of never expected just something that me and my friends made, I just never imagined that to sort of go where it's gone. But it's been a really cool and interesting experience, and it's created a lot of great opportunities as well.
Yeah, well, the movie kind of like, it kind of resonates with the whole notion of like doing a movie with your friends. Because like I kind of like always, when I talk about this movie, I'm always like, oh, it's like the ultimate home movie of like, if everyone you like did the movie with your friends, like, and everyone was capable of doing something correctly. Like sometimes when you want to do a home movie, someone sucks at lighting or someone sucks at this and sucks at that. It looks like shit at the end. But like you, it really came together really beautifully, and it's not like, that's what I was kind of like trying to explore your background a bit, because it's not like, I don't want to say artsy, but it doesn't seem like an auteur film. It kind of has like this Hollywood-esque kind of action movie vibe to it. And every time you're in film school, like I was in film school, every time you're kind of like, yeah, I have this cool concept, and you imagine it like shooting it like a Hollywood movie, everyone looks at you like a pariah, or like, oh, that's not serious, like this is stupid and you shouldn't do it. We're doing serious art here. So I feel like it was really interesting to see it like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the same everywhere. Like, I think particularly when you're young, you want to, like, everyone thinks they're a genius and they've got this great vision, and people like, and it's very sort of like introspective, and I'm not I feel like I've always been a little bit of the odd one out there, because I'm more interested in making people laugh and giving them a good time, and putting on a bit of a show. I'm not that interested in sort of what people think of me, or like, oh, there's a lot of that stuff I feel like just comes from, I want people to think I'm smart, and I want people to think I'm whatever you want people to think of you. But I don't know, I don't really approach it from that angle. I sort of approach it from, are people going to have a good time? Am I having a good time watching this? Is this fun? Would I watch this with my friends? That's sort of my approach. Excuse me. And I think that comes from...
No, it's okay.
It sort of comes from a bit of, I sort of burned out on being an artist when I was an artist. And then when I moved into music videos and also live performances on the stage and stuff, I just I get way more of a buzz when everybody's having a good time. You know, like that's really for me what attracts me to do this. I just want to make something that's easy to watch, that's a lot of fun. And I'm not saying that art films are not fun. Like I love art films, and I'm a you know, I've got a massive collection of them. But in terms of making stuff,
that's not that. It's just like you want to make like something that people like are gonna, you know, the term like turn your brain off and have a good time, and not just like try to fall into like super introspective and deeply connected like personal narratives. You just want to like do something that people are gonna laugh, have fun, and like just, oh wow, that's really cool. Hey, like, have you seen this movie? I'll lend you a copy, whatever. We'll watch it together and we'll have a beer or something. That's kind of like the communal aspect that you have to it.
Sorry. I also feel like they're not exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. You can do both, and most good movies do both. They're like entertaining, easy to watch, but they also have something honest about them, and if they don't have that, they don't really last very long. You know what I mean? They're like, that was neat, but who really cares? I feel like most good movies do both, and I also feel like, you know, a lot of art films or European cinema, or you know, various sort of like that like Dardenne brother type things, they're just as melodramatic. Like, it's just melodrama in a different tone. It's like there's no, it's still just a bunch of bullshit, like, you know, drama, but it's just the tone is different, and so I don't see it as like this requires you to turn your brain off and this one doesn't. Like, I mean, it's all similar, you know. and my approach is just like, you know, some people like a particular kind of music, and but what I don't do, I suppose, is, and this is something I learned from music, is I had a lot of friends that were way better musicians than I was, or that my band was, and they were always confused. Excuse me. And they were always confused why did our band, why did we do well? Why were we the ones touring the UK? Why did we have all our songs on the radio and all this kind of stuff? And oftentimes it's like when you focus completely on craft, and you forget about the experience of being an audience member, when you're no longer an audience and you're more of a technician, I think that you start making music for musicians, or you start making films for filmmakers, and that's a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of people. Whereas I prefer to make stuff for everybody, or as many people as I can, and that's the kind of stuff I've always liked. And when I was in the band, you know, all my friends would tell me I had bad taste. You know, you have shit taste in music, Tim. And it's like, because I just like popular stuff, you know. And it's like, maybe I do, but it's also like, you know, I like you know, I like the other stuff too. It's just I want to have fun. You know what I mean? I don't want to like sit there and study it.
And at the same time, like, there's always this like stigma of like, oh yeah, popular culture is garbage. But at some point, you gotta wonder, why is it popular culture? Like, why is this so appealing? Like, there must be, at some point, it can't all be garbage. There has to be some components that work and that like are meaningful for some people, or like it's, you know, it's more complex than you just totally disregard it.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course you don't disregard it. Like, if you disregard it, like, no one cares. So, I mean, the best films are films that feel personal, and the best way to do that is to let yourself be the audience, trust yourself, and make the kind of movie that you would like to watch, and just be honest. And I feel like if you try really hard to make if you're not the kind of person that enjoys like commercial type movies, then or that if you're not a good audience for them, if you're more of like you can only make what you can make. And I feel like when you're trying to push yourself into trying to make something that maybe is not naturally you, then it's very hard to know if it's working or not, or because you're not the audience. And I feel like that can happen both ways, whether you're trying to, make something that's, a sort of more of an art film, if you're not an art film person, or if you're trying to make something broader. I mean, thinking about that, and when I'm talking about what I'm doing, I'm just saying that's my natural sort of taste, is to make stuff like this. It's just my natural sort of like where I'm comfortable, and I'm not that interested in like then gonna try and make an art film or try and make a big blockbuster or something like that. It's more, this is the kind of stuff I like, and that's why I make it.
And it feels more honest this way, like just like completely.
It's sorry, like you cut out.
Yeah. Sorry. It feels like, I think we could see it, that like everyone was having a good time in the movie, and also how this, like, it seems like it's kind of almost like pops off the screen that like everyone is having a good time, and you clearly had something to say, but not in like, oh, this is like something I have to like express myself about my personal feelings. You're like, no, this is something I want to watch. This is something I made and I made it, and I really like, I really like, I put myself in the position of like the people that are watching, and I think that they're having a good time. Like, I think you succeeded really well in this.
I mean, it's just, I suppose it's sort of, part of it is luck, just that other people think the same thing is entertaining as I do. So that's, I mean, part of that is just like that my taste seems to overlap with other people's taste, some other people's taste, enough other people's taste for enough people to have a good time when they're watching it. Some people hated it, and that's because our tastes are just not similar. But for me, this kind of irreverent, dumb, like sort of goofy take on a time travel movie where the main character has super low aspirations, and that for me that's really that I don't know, I think it's really funny, and just playing everything very how it would, as if it's real. There's not like great big overreactions to things, and it's just very simple and straightforward, and that to me is funny, just like the basic concept of it. And then just finding the right people who can give those kinds of performances, those really underplayed, just the getting the tone right, and then once you've done that, it's just a matter of like, putting it together and seeing if other people like it too.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about like casting, like weren't like a lot of the actors your friends and stuff, right?
Yeah.
For the movie?
Most of them were my friends. A couple of them were people that I met on the street, and I just asked them if they wanted to be in the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Could we have some examples, like just like out of the blue?
Oh yeah, because I used to do that for music videos all the time. I'd meet someone, and the way they would talk, like some people just have a really interesting cadence to their voice, and I'd be like, you have a really unique way of talking. So I mean, I got an idea for you. Would you like to come along for a day and a couple of days and be in a movie? And sometimes they would, oftentimes they just sort of wouldn't believe. They'll be like, what are you talking about? And so I'd give them a card or something, and then some people would ring me back and some people wouldn't. But that's how I got some of the cast. But I used to do that with music videos all the time as well, like, but more for people with like interesting looks or stuff like that. So it's not, for me, it's not unusual. But coming up through art school, you just, you do, the kind of stuff we used to do to make things happen was just, like anything you could pull off to make something work. Yeah.
Do you have like somebody in the movie that you want to say like, oh yeah, that was somebody that I just picked up from the street, like in Mega Time Squad?
So there's the guy Terry, who has he's sort of like Shelton's right hand man, but doesn't really want to be, and so he's somebody that I just met, and I really liked him as a person as well, and he was a really like nice, gentle guy, and then he had this way of speaking that was quite unique, and this sort of naive enthusiasm about him that I thought, and so I asked him if he wanted to do it, and then he was really into it, and I think he's really funny. I think he's one of the stars of it, and he's just got that perfect mix that I wanted, where you can't quite tell if he's an actor or not, like he's just right, perfect on that line of, is he an actor or is he just the guy, or what, so that's sort of like, and it makes it even more pronounced when you've got someone like Johnny playing Shelton, and Johnny's like very big and very commanding on screen, and so I don't know, just the mix of personalities and styles I felt was pretty close to how I wanted it in the end. So it's like cooking. You've got to just choose the right ingredients, and and then hopefully it all comes together.
But the guy who plays Thierry, he really like was super invested in the project. Like he came to Fantasia also. Like I saw him in like a bunch of stuff. Like he was like really into it.
Yeah, well, he's a cultural representative here in New Zealand, and so he does a lot of kapahaka, which is he does a lot of sort of cultural greetings and initiations and blessings and various things like this in New Zealand, and so I think it's really good. It was really good for him to come over as well and have that whole, and it was great to have him over in Montreal, and so but he's I think he really enjoyed it.
Well, like as he was like talking, you could see like, but again, like that's what I meant. Like what you could see at Fantasia, and you kind of see like everyone seems to really have a good time on that set. Like everyone seems to like love the idea, love the.
It's just that thing of like, when you don't have any money, the least you could do is make sure that everyone's having a good time. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it would be terrible if you had a really low budget and everyone was it sucked and everyone was like, this is shit, and they didn't want to be. We sort of treat it more like a camp situation where we're all going camping and we just hang out and we shoot some scenes and maybe have a couple of beers, have a pizza, shoot a couple more scenes, like it's a bit more. That's how we treated that movie, because you don't want to get halfway through the shoot and then people are like, this sucks, I'm going home, and then you don't have your movie.
I've seen this, and again, like especially like in places when there's no money, like you said, if like not everyone's having a good time, then people will just like, oh yeah, today they didn't show up because they're like, fuck this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that sucks. Yeah. Well, since you spoke about beer, the actual name of the show is like a play on words on what a movie, but in French there's like tout, and there's like a word play because like the beer style stout, so it's like stout, like it's such a anyway. So we talk about beers on the show like every time, like we're gonna basically for your movie we're gonna take like two extremely rare IPAs that I had to go to like a release, and it was a whole thing. I had to wake up at 3 a.m. and be there at 6 o'clock in line, and it's like, but I took these for your episode because they're made with Nelson Sauvin, which is like a New Zealand hop, like it's a hop from New Zealand. So are you into beers? Are you into micro beers? What's your extent? Like, what's your relationship to beers?
Well, yeah, I've had my fair share of beer. I like I like a really simple like a pilsner. I'm really boring with my beer choices. I have a friend who has a microbrewery and he makes a chocolate stout, which is really nice, but that's more like you sit there and you drink that and then that's all you drink, whereas I prefer to drink quite a lot of beers if I'm going to drink beers. And so I like to drink a pilsner because it's easy, it goes down easy.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of microbreweries here in New Zealand, and a lot of them are great. And but I find that I have almost like I get like a hay fever from them. I get like, some of them, there's just too much going on in there, and I get a very red face, and my nose will get blocked, and so I'm not a massive microbrewery guy because I'm sort of sick of rolling the dice and then feeling sick. So there are some that I like. There's this is probably like our oldest microbrewery in New Zealand, and it's called Emerson's, and it's from Dunedin in the South Island, and they do a good range of stuff, and the Emerson's Pilsner is particularly good. So I would recommend that.
Do you also want to plug in your? Do you want to plug in your friend's micro? So if ever we're allowed to travel back, if like our listeners want to go see like his micro, because we have a lot of like very like we're kind of like on the opposite side of your consumption. We like to buy really fancy stuff, like exclusive and super hoppy and weird stuff. Like we're really into that. Yeah, we're like beer snobs here.
I mean that's what a lot of people are like here as well, but that's that's probably the more mature way to look at alcohol consumption. But his microbrewery, his name is Adam Spark, and he has a microbrewery called Sparks, and he does all kinds of stuff. And he used to be an editor for a TV show, and then he started just making beer at home, and then he won a bunch of awards, and then he started to expand it, and then it got bigger and bigger, and he kept winning more awards, and then that's now what he does full time. But the whole virus and everything closing down has been difficult for him, and I'm not sure. So I mean we'll see how everything plays out, but I definitely recommend his beers, that's for sure.
Okay, well, we noted that, and if ever we can go, we'll try.
Yeah, for sure.
if you want to come, if you want to come back to the movie, because you framed this as like a very casual thing, like you say, we're shooting like a scene, we're kind of like hanging out as buddies, like a camping thing. We're trying to have everyone have a good time, but this like script is like not like it's quite complex. You know, you're dealing with time travel, and you're dealing with like probably double exposures like all the time and stuff. It's like a pretty complex story. Like in terms of like creative writing and production wise, do you want to like explain a bit how you did it, or
yeah,
yeah?
I suppose it's, I mean, for me, it's, I don't find it that complicated. One thing I really didn't like, and I'm not sure if this was a good idea or a bad idea, but I really didn't want to explain how it worked. All of the, because I'm sick, you know, there's so many time travel movies where it's like, this is how it works, and it's like, oh my god, I'm so bored, and it's so I just wanted to like, you just know as much as our guy knows, and our guy is not all of the Johns, you know, like so I was like, I don't really want to, I took all that stuff out of the script. I also I had a whole subplot around like the gang rivalry that was happening in town in Thames, and that's why Shelton has his explosive vest and stuff, because he's trying to intimidate them and all these kinds of things, and it was funny, but it just felt like it was getting a bit too big for me to be able to pull off in a sort of to the standard that I wanted to, because with doing music videos, you sort of learn what you can pull off to a relatively high standard without any resources, and what you should avoid. So I knew that there were certain things I could do, like, for example, you know, the doubling, tripling, quadrupling of the characters, this sort of circular storytelling moments where he would see himself in the past when he would travel back in time, and these kinds of things that I knew I could pull off relatively, like, you know, to a decent standard. It comes with a bunch of sort of trade-offs though, because this movie is not really the visual style that I normally go for, and the reason for that is that in order for me to do all these effects and to do all this work, it had to be a locked off camera, you know, so everything needed to be so you'll notice that the camera never moves for the entire movie, because I thought well, I can't really have the camera moving and then every time there's an effects shot it goes to sticks, and I was like, that'll look terrible. It'll just make all the effects shots look really obvious and bad. So I thought, well, what if we just set it up to be super like clinical, you know, and so we choose a lens for each shot and a framing for each shot, and so it has this very sort of mathematical thinking behind the aesthetic to the visual approach to it, you know. So that gives it a consistency, but you know, it's not the way I normally would do it at all, right? Because it, you know, when you're take more away dynamic when you shoot, you're taking away, like, you know, a huge amount of your ability to tell a story with a certain nuance, but also to help actors, you know, like when you have you really like the actors have to give a lot more when there's a static camera.
Yeah.
Without going over the top, because you can no longer push in, you can no longer sort of track with them or show what they're looking at in a single, that requires a lot more from them, and it also makes your film feel a lot more clinical. But in terms of writing, I mean, I find just writing the story to me is quite simple. Just a guy wants to leave town, and then he finds this time travel bracelet that he thinks will help him get this money that will help him leave town. And the sort of fun of it and the silliness of it is that there's no reason that he can't leave town anyway. He doesn't need the money, he doesn't need any of this stuff. It's just psychological, like that he believes that he needs to do this thing. And so in terms of writing it, I think I spent quite a long time its first iteration. It was a lot more sort of thriller in tone, in that I don't write dialogue whenever I write my first drafts. I don't write any dialogue, because I want to make sure that the story is always moving forward through action, and then I add the dialogue afterwards. And so that's why the dialogue in this movie is just almost 100% jokes, because it can be, because the story works through action. And so I wrote it, and then I sort of felt like the idea for it was so ridiculous that, I mean, it would be remiss of me to not make it a comedy. So I jumped back in and I rewrote it, and I think I rewrote the script in about 2 weeks, and after spending probably 3 months developing it and working out, how it was all going to fit together, and that ended up being what we shot. And there's very little. I think there's only like a couple of scenes that we didn't put in, and they were more sort of setup stuff. Like the film, we just sort of skipped a lot of the setup of the character and his sort of position in the in town, and what where he sort of found himself, and the people that were sort of jealous of him being sort of Shelton's favorite and stuff. So we cut that stuff out just to start the story quicker. So we just decided, let's just start the story in the first minute, and get rid of the setup. But
I think it was like really effective how like it was like there was a lot of setup that was put visually in the first like seconds. Like first seconds you see that he has like a family, and then but like right after you like cut to him going out of the garage in this very like king-esque manner. and you find it like it's such like a like, oh, okay, we're dealing with this kind of character, so it's like you don't even have to say anything, like the audience gets, oh, okay, this is what we're dealing with for an hour and 20 minutes. And I feel like it kind of gives a lot of like less weight. It's just like, oh, okay, this is gonna be like a good time. This is gonna be fun.
My favorite characters are characters that think they're way cooler than they are, like that's or think they're way smarter than they are, or like I just love that kind of shit. I love experts.
But everyone
like,
is
it's just
everyone is like this in your movie. It's amazing. Because everyone's so trashy, and everyone thinks they're super cool and badass when they're all just like, they're such losers. They're like the worst gangsters ever.
I know, but that's, I mean, to me,
and I love it. I mean, it's so cool.
I just think that's really funny. I also like how he's always on the side. My favorite thing about the main character is how he's always on the side of the bad guys. Like, so even when they're trying to kill him, they're trying to kill him, and he's like, oh yeah, fair enough. Like, he thinks he totally always identifies with them, no matter what. Like, I think I don't know. I just love that shit. It's so stupid.
I love how when he's like speaking to the girl and he was like, oh yeah, that's Shelton and we've been mates ever since, and the girl's like, right, mates, and he's just like trying to fucking kill you, but sure, he's your mate.
Yeah, he still thinks he's
it's great.
Friend. Yeah. Yeah, I that kind of stuff, I don't know. I find that kind of thing really funny. Yeah, shit, I kind of want to watch it again now. I haven't seen it in ages. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something about that kind of simple dynamic of just somebody being, like, such an asshole, but also such a nice guy at the same time. Like, it's just, I don't know, this naivety about it that I find really funny.
But I just your movie kind of reminds me of the saying of, like, everyone's like, oh yeah, you get with people that are like you, and it's like, no, you don't, because you would just they just get on your nerves all the time, the people that are like you, and then it's like 4 of you, and it really showed how much, like, the worst of yourself comes out. Like, at first they're just like, oh yeah, it's super cool, we're all buddies because we're all the same, but really soon you see how, like, everyone just becomes more of an asshole and more of a pussy, or more of this, more of that.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
At the same time, at the same time, it's really interesting how, like, all of him kind of helps him have some nuts. So it's like, basically he just needed a bit more of himself to be the person he wanted to be. It's like, I find it super, like, enlightening, like a message. Maybe I'm known to, like, go a bit too deep in those kinds of things.
Well, I mean, that's part of the point of the movie, is that for him to stop being such a coward, he needs to realize that it's just himself holding him back, right? It's that all his fucking aspirations and morals and upside down view of how the world works is just rot in his own mind, and it's like that's why the multiple versions of himself sort of amplifying the negative elements of his personality and making him realize what a piece of shit he is sort of sets him free a little bit, like, and he's like, I'm just containing myself, like, there's no, like, I could like, realistically, I'm just going to the next town. I mean, come fucking on, it's not that hard, but he makes it hard for himself. So it's like, so yeah, I mean, all this is there, this kind of stuff is there, but it's not sort of like, I don't hit on it very hard. I did have scenes in there around that sort of 2/3 of the way through the movie mark where everything sort of goes wrong for him because all the multiples of him are selfish assholes just like him. Where it did go into that a little more, and he's like realizes the error of his ways, and he apologizes, and he does these kinds of things, but it felt like this strange earnest beat in a movie that was more absurd, and so we just felt like maybe it didn't need that, and it could be a bit, we should just stay with the sort of more fun tone of it all,
Do you have, like, something you wanted to explore psychologically with, the whole, like, part of him that's, like, the basically the evil like half of him that's left at the end of the movie? Like,
well, I did have a where I feel like well, like, so I did have a different ending to the movie to start with, and we did shoot that. It's where, so he at the end he runs into himself in the bathroom of the service station.
Yeah,
so,
called Ass. Is that a real thing or?
No, no, it's called.
Because it's a gas station that's called Ass. Like,
I know, it's just dumb. It was just.
I was just like, I don't want to. I was like, I don't want to be rude. I'm Canadian and I don't know New Zealand, but like this looks like it's not real.
No, it's not real because it's actually called gas, GAS, and I just was like, why don't we just move the AS over? And so I just comped the AS over the G and the A. So I thought it was maybe it was. I was like, is that too much? But whatever. I was like, okay, fuck it, it's stupid anyway. We'll just leave that. But originally, what he does a deal with himself in the bathroom, where one of them takes the money, and the other one gets the freedom, and then the one that gets the freedom goes off with Kelly and is sort of a bit bummed that the money's gone, but he also, I think that's actually in the movie. Actually, he sort of like, there's not as much in the movie as I wrote, but it's like it's more, he's got this vibe that is a little bit more romantic, and that he sort of like realized that what's important is the freedom and being with her and stuff like that. And then there's the other guy, and the other guy gets the money, and he leaves, and he like goes and he parties, but then a real demon comes, like the actual real demon, and it pulls him, it like rips him to bits and kills him, and that's a bit like at the end of Drag Me to Hell, how she gets pulled down into hell. So it used to end like that, and it was cool, but it was also just felt like, so there was two reasons I didn't do it. One was that it felt the way I shot it was just too dark, right? It wasn't funny. It was like, holy fuck. It was like super brutal, and it just felt too, it just felt like the wrong note to end the movie on. And the other thing is that, excuse me, the VFX for the demon, I just didn't have the budget to do that the way I wanted to do it. So I was like, if I want to end the movie that way, I have to be 100% convinced that that's the best way to do it, because it's going to cost a lot of money to get that demon done. And then I was like, is that the note we want to end it on? And it just felt too dark. And it wasn't to do with the concept, like, or the story beat, which was fine, and I think it worked, but it was more the way I executed it was just too brutal. It was like suddenly we went into like, bone tomahawk territory, or one of these super bleak, and I was like, it's not, I didn't do it in a way that like felt fun, so and like a joke, it should feel like, like at the end of Drag Me to Hell, how when she gets dragged to hell, it's sort of like a fun punchline. And the way that Sam Raimi executed it was like, it was sort of fun and funny and it, but like terrifying, but in a fun way. Whereas mine was like terrifying in
too scary,
fucking depressing way. It was like, oh, that's just too dark. So anyway, that's something that I learned not to do when I do. If and when I ever do violence, just to make sure not to make it too realistic. Well, like in a comedy.
Yeah. Especially for like the tone you were going for, it might have not.
Yeah,
like it kind of just.
I just preferred to see people. I just preferred. I just feel like I think it's better to send people out of the cinema feeling, sentimental and fun and upbeat, rather than holy fuck that was brutal,
I think it would have worked well at Fantasia, but probably not everywhere.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, I think that people would have really been into it at Fantasia, but not everywhere.
Oh, right, yeah. I think Fantasia is a very special audience, but also just the nature of a lot of the films there, like, people are more used to that kind of thing, and I think for it just it's a little bit like it's just a I don't know, I think of it as like a palette, like if you're going to make a certain kind of music or something, you choose a certain selection of instruments, and then if you suddenly bring in a particular instrument right at the end of your song, sometimes that can be a cool, fun surprise, but sometimes it's just like, man, I wish they didn't do that. That sucked. And so I feel like sometimes it's a little bit like that, where it's like, okay, that was a bad choice, but we have the advantage of being able to get rid of it before anyone sees it.
Yeah. I kind of had like a question about because we covered what we do in the shadows earlier. It was one of the episodes, and I was watching an interview with Johnny, and he actually dropped you guys, and I thought that was really sweet. Because cool. He was talking about what we do in the shadows, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this movie. It's called Mega Time Squad," and I felt so special. I was like, "Ooh, I know about this." But yeah, he was.
So was that what we do in the shadows? Was that the TV show that you interviewed him about, or was that the movie?
No, the movie. The movie he was talking about.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah. Sorry. He was talking about the movie.
Okay, cool.
But he was talking a lot about like how difficult it is to like make movies in New Zealand and Australia, and since you have your own company, you're kind of like I don't know how it works for you, or like because you've been doing pretty much all your stuff yourself, so you've always been in a restricted budget. But he says that even like people that are in the industry are having difficulty, and I hear the same thing here in Quebec, because in Quebec we have like a very niche like filmmaking area, because like it's French centered, so it can't be sold everywhere. So we're hearing like these same parallels. So if we've been talking for a few episodes about like how difficult it is, and also like what people are trying to do, like we had like a huge success with Netflix approaching like an independent company, almost like just like yours, and like financed their movie entirely, and it like was a huge success. But it completely shattered the industry. Like people are like very polarized in Quebec about like having people from the exterior financing, and I wanted to know if you had like thoughts about, because like I'm sure that our audience is not familiar with what's going on in New Zealand, and if you want to talk about those things. And
yeah, well, I think there's two different kinds of filmmaking. There's government filmmaking, where your film is paid for by the government, and in order to do that, you have to there's a certain number of and kind of hoops you have to jump through depending on how the bureaucracy is sort of position their goals for the current iteration of your funding bodies, and what they think they're doing and what they think is important. And that's one way to make films. And the other way to make films is to appeal to the market. And you have to, it's a similar sort of approach. It's a bit, I find it more exciting and more more positive experience working with a market approach where you know, like, you write a script and then you go, you know, my agents arrange a bunch of meetings with me, with producers and production companies, and who read the script and like it, and then we get together and I pitch, and it's a really fun experience. And it's more about, is, you know, do they think that this is something that they want to put money in, that they think they will get that money back and make a profit or not. And there's that sort of approach, whereas with the governmental filmmaking, it's less about that. I mean, you know, in New Zealand they pretend it's about that, but I mean, come on, they've never made anything that's made any money. They've made like a couple, and it's but that's been, so Taika has done a couple of things that have made money, but it's a little bit different because he also is coming to them from the commercial market anyway, you know what I mean? So and he makes the kind of movies, he makes movies where you don't just sell one ticket, you sell, the whole family buys a ticket, so you sell 4 or 5 tickets, and that's his taste, that's how, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't think it's like you know, a grand master plan. It's just like, it's like everybody, they just have a certain taste and they have a certain kind of movie they want to make, and they make that, and people either like it or they don't. It has an audience or it doesn't. So I mean, when dealing with the government, there's different hoops to jump through, like you know, how does this represent New Zealand culturally, and how does it what are your sort of like different political elements to it that sort of you know, push whatever agenda that the government is pushing at the moment, however, whatever that is, and that changes every few years. So it's just a different kind of thing, but I mean, I don't, like, I prefer, like, I've worked with both, and I don't mind. They both result in films being made, which is good, and so I don't care how you get your film made, just, it doesn't matter to me. But I think both ways are difficult. They're just different ways of thinking about filmmaking, and different priorities, and different people will like doing it in different ways. And I think it's always difficult to make a film. I think the easiest time to make a film is when you're young and you've got a lot of friends that don't have financial responsibility, that want to make movies, and you can get in and you can make stuff and just make as much shit as you possibly can. Because all of my friends that I work with, you know, including myself, now, you know, we all make our living doing this professionally for all kinds of different people. So you're talking about what we do in the shadows. I am directing a TV show called Wellington Paranarmal, which is a spin-off of what we do in the shadows.
Really? Really, you are? Because we were talking about the spin-offs on the podcast, and we just saw this. We were like, oh, they're doing a thing with Wellington, like with the police officers. We were like, okay. But really, you're going to direct some. That's really cool.
I already have. I just finished season 3.
Oh, you already did? Okay.
Yeah, just finished season 3. That should be coming to you guys next year, I think. Because I think I don't know. I'm probably not allowed to talk about it. Anyway, it'll be coming out wide soon. And so yeah, I've been directing that, which I love. So much fun. And yeah, and then just writing a lot, writing on lots of different film projects, and which is strange because I never picked myself as a writer, and now most of my work, well, not most of it, but a big chunk of my work is writing now. So yeah, which I've learned to love, you know. It's a bit like asparagus.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah.
But I mean, it's like, it's really striking because like I've seen like a lot of people that don't consider themselves like writers at first that write really good stuff, and your script is like really good. Like it's really funny. Like the movie's really funny. There's a lot of really funny moments, and it's like, it's stupid shit, but it's really funny. Like just like the joke of like, oh, if she doesn't like it, can I bring it back? And he's like, you will bring it back. And he's like, yo, because it's made in China, right? It's like, what the fuck? That's so good.
It's so stupid, eh? It is just...
It's really dumb, but it's super good.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of stuff I like. I like stuff that's... I mean, I think that's why they got me on to do Wellington Paranarmal, because it's... A lot of the comedy is similar. You know, it's that sort of stupid but funny kind of stuff, and yeah, so I mean that's been cool. And then I don't know, I'm just working on a comedy movie in Hollywood at the moment, which they've asked me to direct. So that's exciting. Getting all of that together, that's gonna be a big job, and you know, I just have to make it fucking awesome, if you know what I mean. It's like, it's
yeah,
it's like, it'll be my first, well, I mean, you know, depending on when it gets made, it'll be my first sort of like actual big commercial movie. So I'm, you know, like, I'm confident, but I'm also at the same time doing everything I possibly can to make sure that it's going to be good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just like,
yeah.
Holy fuck, there's a lot riding on me here, and you know, these people have put a lot of faith in me to do this thing and make it good, and so I have to, you know, really make sure it's fucking funny and you know, and tell the story really effectively. And so anyway, it's just that thing of it's a little, you know, you get a little bit more anxious, and because it's not just you and your project anymore. You're sort of like, there's a whole lot of people around you, sort of you know, just taking, sort of like giving feedback, but also like taking your guidance, and you've got to sort of like treat that with a certain kind of the responsibility that comes with it. And so it's cool, and you know, it's what I've been working for my entire life. I mean, pretty much. Everyone wants
to shoot something in Hollywood, right? That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. I mean, I always have. So it's pretty exciting. But also, you know, comes with like a certain amount of anxiety as well, because you want to make sure that, you know,
you don't want to fuck it
awesome.
up.
Yeah. But it's not even that. I don't think I could fuck it up. I think it's more about making it like really fucking good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's more like I know how to make something good. I just want to be able to make something amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a bit of magic that's got to happen between good and great. And with so much being made and so many incredibly talented filmmakers out there, there's just that you just want your project to be that bit, that thing where people walk out of it being like, holy fuck, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. That's what I want anyway, you know.
Yeah, but I think that everyone like wants to, especially because like when you're coming to Hollywood, if you make a hit, nobody will ever say no to you after, you know. Like that's what everyone says. So like, you want this to be great, but you also, because like I feel like also when you're in the like Hollywood lens, you have such a bigger like, it's gonna get distributed everywhere, like everyone's gonna see it, so you feel like you have a like much more like you're gonna make a bigger difference if you really knock it off of the park, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And it's you know, you're paired up with people who are putting a lot of trust in you in their careers. You know, there's a certain like responsibility to the people who are trusting you with their careers, and as well in terms of like them making like a good step forward with the project, and so it's like, I don't know, there's a lot to consider, and maybe I consider that kind of stuff too much, because I know a lot of people that don't give a fuck about anybody else. You know, they just like, well, it's me and I'm a genius and I'm going to make the greatest thing, and there's a lot of people in this industry like that, where there's a lot of egos, and I get that. I think, you know, there's there's also a lot of people who are like fucking incredibly talented, and maybe their ego is just part of that. But I'm a little more. I suppose I'm a little more. I don't know, self-reflective, and am I doing the right thing? And
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that that's a better way. It would be nice to just not care and not have that in the back of your mind, and just be like, I'm just fucking going for this, and I'm just going to do this, and fuck it, you know, well, who cares? And that would be like a relaxing experience. But yeah, I have a tendency to bring a bit of anxiety with it. So not when I'm on, like, see, it all disappears when the production starts. Like all my anxiety happens before, because I do a lot of planning, and I do a lot of thinking, and I do a lot of like pre-visualization and sort of tonal thinking, and sort of pace related things. Because one of the things that's difficult, that, well, at least that I find something that I have to keep a lot of focus on when I'm on set, is pacing elements, you know. So there's certain parts of a story that you want to play out a little slower, and other parts that you want to play out a little faster, and if you don't, like, some people, maybe they have a natural inclination for that, but for me, I'm like, okay, I always make notes on the script. How could this scene go right, and how could this scene go wrong? And make sure that I'm hitting all the things that I think will make it go right, and making sure that I'm avoiding all the things that could make it go wrong. And but once I'm on set and I'm shooting, all my anxieties and everything just disappear, because that's the part of the process that I like the most. Like, I just love working with crew and with actors, and I love being surprised and entertained by what the fuck the actors do, and the crazy shit that they come up with, and the way that they'll do lines and interact. Like, that's my favorite part of it, and also just, you know, problem solving stuff with the crew. I really enjoy that kind of stuff, and oftentimes a lot of the planning that I've done beforehand turns out to be, you know, like more of a backstop, and when we're actually there, there's better ways to do it. But at least it gives me that peace of mind. I think that's probably the reason I do it. But it's yeah, I think the best part is being on set. Is my favourite part, and just being entertained by really funny, talented people all day and getting to film it. That's that's the best part.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting close to the end. Do you want to maybe you plugged in the show, but did you want to plug in something else that you want people to look at? If there's a project you've been working on, or a movie that's a little bit more underground that you did that you think deserves a bit more love.
Well, my next two projects are not, they're in sort of pre-production phase, so I'm not going to plug them. I guess the best, I think if people like Mega Time Squad, and I think they should search out Wellington Paranarmal. That's the TV show that I've been directing lately, and that's like Taika and Jermaine's spin-off of What We Do in the Shadow, and I think it's really funny. It's like a reality show. It's like a police 10/7. It's like police reality show, but they investigate paranormal stuff. So and it's
oh God.
I think it's fucking hilarious. So if people want to hunt that down and get their hands on it, they won't be disappointed.
Well, I think we're gonna watch it and probably cover on the show, because we were talking about it on the episode of What We Do in the Shadows, and if you're involved, then for sure I want to see it. That's for sure.
Yeah, you should check it out. I wasn't on season 1, but I directed some in season 2, and then we just finished season 3, which will be coming out next year. And then there'll be a season 4 in the works that starts in October. And yeah, it's great. I love it. I think it's really funny.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We're super happy. We're honored that you wanted to come, and
thank you for inviting me.
We can't wait to talk about it. Oh yeah, well, I'm really flattered that you accepted.
Of course.
Yeah, so Mega Time Squad, it's available on YouTube. It's available physical copy. Do you have it in other places? Because I just went directly on YouTube. Is it on?
Yeah, I think
did you get a deal with a streaming service?
I think it's on most of the streaming platforms. I'm not sure. It's on so many that I can't remember them all. So, I'm pretty sure if you just search it, you'll be able to find it pretty easy.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for being on the show, and we just can't wait to do the episode with you. We're gonna talk a lot about the funny, weird shit that was in it.
Okay, great, man.
Okay,
have a good one, and thanks for having me on, and I hope everything goes well.